French territory where Carlos Boulozan once lived to tell the story of the rain sweat glory of Mike Jackson men who fight the destination we were destined to end. Left the writing on the wall in the halls of the Nippon Khan. Others transformed, majority Decepticons, but my conception of the walk.
All right. Our intro music is officially sanctioned. We got a hold of Gio from the Blue Scholars, and he said, feel free, which means literally use it for free. So
This is big time. This is one of our top 3 moments in Wait for It Seattle / C-Town Sports
well,
history.
you know what's cool is he's doing DJing for KEXP now. So he's legit. He's always been legit.
Yep.
From the jump.
We should try to have him as a guest sometime.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
By the way, this is Kevin, and that's Brian, and it's the Wait for It Seattle podcast on C-Town Sports.
Let's go.
That's as scripted as it'll get.
That's fair. That's fair.
Lots going on, but not a whole lot going on.
Yeah.
With Seahawks football and Husky football done. I mean, there's off-season stuff. The Mariners aren't playing yet.
And not doing anything.
What's there to talk about?
I mean, the Kraken are atrocious. Like, they either win 6-2 or lose 6-2.
Yeah.
They have a 0.4% chance of making the playoffs. There's nothing to talk about there right now.
Man, it's only like mid-January.
It's not even the All-Star break. Like, it is brutal. Our 95.5 points over doesn't look great.
See, this is the period of Seattle sports time where things get boring because we don't have an NBA team.
Totally true. Yep.
And it's been like this since 2008, which has been a long time. So we're going to go 4 downs. And we're going to go outside of Seattle a little bit, but let's start within Seattle and talk some Husky basketball. Let's start with some
That's all
positives.
we got.
Yeah.
That's all we got.
So the women, they lost to Michigan State.
Yep.
By 12. That was a road game, and then no, they're at home.
No, it was road. Yeah,
it was road. Oh, so they flip-flopped with the men's then, is what happened.
Yeah, it was weird. So the men played Michigan State, obviously,
On
earlier
Thursday.
in the week on the road. So the women and men are both in Michigan right now, and the men are obviously heading home, but the women stay there, play one more game.
Got it.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting how it lined up that way. And they both played at 11 a.m. today, which I was double screening at one point. I felt very proud.
It was doing gymnastics in my head because I was at least for the first half-ish, I was getting alerts and I couldn't keep straight.
Right, because Michigan State.
Yeah, I was feeding the baby, right? So I was like, who's playing and what's the score and what, so let's start with the woman.
Yeah.
In our notes, we have that they're up to 48 in the net ranking, which put them in the top 64, top 65, whatever, for the NCAA tournament, or 68. Do they have a first 4 in the women's tournament? I should know this.
That's a good question. I don't remember off the top of my head, actually.
Yeah.
I think they're moving towards it if they haven't already. But, they go on a different schedule, which is smart. They have expanded the tournament recently. I don't know if that 40 range, because of the automatic qualifiers, would get them in at-large, but it certainly puts them in the conversation.
Especially when they're in the Big Ten, right? So
yeah, they're 3-2 in the Big Ten. They're right in the middle of the conference. They've lost to UCLA, who's #1 in the country, and they lost to Michigan State, who's a ranked team on the road. And that 12-point loss was the biggest deficit of the game. Like, the Huskies were up, they were down 4, they were down 2, they're up 1. They're in the game the whole time, which was encouraging for me because Michigan State's good, and it's a road game in a different time zone, which I both give credit to or credence to, and some I don't. I'm like, teams do this all the time. Let's not make this a bigger deal.
Yeah.
But I think the Huskies look like they can hang with the top of the Big Ten, and they'll have to prove it with wins, but they're in the mix as a tournament team. To me, they look like they belong in the tournament.
Yeah. And I guess what would you say is the team's strength at this point? I mean, there's enough data right there. So I think at this point in the season, the scouting reports for all the teams are kind of set, right?
Yeah.
So strengths, tendencies, where teams like to go. There's just there's enough data out there if you're
Yeah,
searching
what
for the
teams want to
Huskies.
do to the Huskies to take them away is they want to take away El Ladine and Savia Sellers, their two guards, and that's also the Husky strength. Those two players, as opposed to the men, who we'll talk about in a second, but in their respective games, Sellers and Ladine can get shots off against good competition, right?
Hmm.
They're shot creators and makers, and you need people who can do that when games are tight because you can't just run great plays and great sets. As you said, everyone scouts.
Hmm.
So I think those two are the strength. They have good guards. They have depth of guards, but Steins and Briggs and Coppinger and Brown are all kind of redundant, whereas Ladine and Sellers are truly creators.
Hmm.
The thing that has surprised this year that makes the Huskies a legit tournament contender is their big play. And Delia Daniels, we've talked about, and she's really good. But EK and McDonald, EK especially, both transfers, McDonald and EK, but EK is shown to be a legit Big Ten post.
Yeah.
So because they have that depth now that they haven't had, they can compete against teams like Michigan State on the road. And we'll preview it on our post to go out this week. But the Michigan game coming up early this week is going to be tough. So they might be 3-3 coming home for the Kelsey Plum retirement ceremony against Purdue, which is a winnable game. But if they could somehow sneak out a win against Michigan, I mean, they'd be looking sweet.
Yeah.
That'd be incredible. I'm not expecting it. I think they have a great freshman class, incredible freshman class. One
Yeah.
of the top 5 freshmen in the country is on their team. They have a really good coach. But the Huskies, to me, they hung with UCLA. They hung with Michigan State in their losses. So that's a tournament team.
Yep. Yep. And then the men.
Not a tournament team, Kev.
Not a tournament team.
That's the easiest way to say it.
We previewed it when we said road games are completely different.
Yep.
And Tom Izzo, Michigan State.
Oh my God.
It just went like if you could draw up worst case scenarios, the worst case scenario happened. Like a 13-point first half.
Yeah.
I don't know if this has happened to you as a coach.
Wait, can you just say that again?
A 13-point first half.
God.
42-13, I think, was the score.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just disgusting.
Okay, so
That's so
what
gross.
would you do if you were Danny Sprinkle and your team had 13 points in the first half of a NCAA Division I Big Ten basketball game?
I mean, I haven't been in the exact scenario, obviously, but I have been in a scenario where we can't score. And it is, I don't know. I think it's the most deflating. I was thinking because when you can't stop someone, it's also deflating. But when you can't score and you can't get into your offense and you can't get shots you want, and I didn't watch the game, so maybe they got shots they want, but I doubt it. It's so deflating. It's the worst because it just doesn't feel like there's anything you can do other than change tempo or change pace or change something, right? So you could go to a press, you could go to a different zone or whatever, but Michigan State's just so much better. And that's my takeaway when I watched Michigan today.
Mm-hmm.
UW hung for a while, but UW doesn't have the players.
They don't and I put this, they don't have depth. So DJ Davis was injured, right? So he didn't play. Yeah. And that's 15 to 20 points that you just lose right there in a snap of a finger.
But I don't know that he would have made a difference. Like I get what you're saying, but like the drop from DJ Davis to the next guy on the bench is not that much different. They just need somebody to absolutely go off for them to win a game. And who's not Great Osibor, who had a decent game today against 2 7-footers.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've talked about this before. If Tyler Harris was an NBA dude, then they would be fine. Or if one of their guards, like I said with the women, could do what Ladine and Sellers do and get a shot off on one, they'd be fine. And they just can't. And they're not good. And I think every time I hear Danny Sprinkle talk about his team, I just think he hates them. And like you created this team. I mean, granted, it was late.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm really curious to see what they look like next year, which is a long time from now. But
It's
just
like
to,
what are the goals, or in my head, what's a realistic expectation like? So
well, just to
if
remind people, they
yeah.
play Purdue, at Oregon, and UCLA their next three, and this is the stretch that's brutal. We talked about it on a previous podcast after they lost to Seattle U.
Hmm.
They had Maryland, Illinois, at Michigan State, at Michigan, and then Purdue, at Oregon, UCLA. And I said they could lose them all and be 0-9 in the Big Ten. They've won one. They beat Maryland, which was a good win. They got to find a way to. I mean, UCLA actually looks bad, and Mick Cronin is whining all over the place and sounding terrible. So maybe they beat Purdue and UCLA, and all of a sudden they're kind of relevant. But I think they're more in danger of finishing in the bottom two in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Which is what, remember that preview? The you bought like a college preview online,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
predicted them last in
The
the Big
blue
Ten,
book. Yeah, it was
and
something
we were
like
like, no way, nope,
yeah.
they were right. It's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It's what happens when you just hobble,
Kev,
put a
you know
team
it's
together.
all true. Very good point. Sorry to interrupt you. What's also kind of depressing for me is that I got all excited during the Maryland game because they looked good and it was fun that I bought tickets to two more games. So
Which games
I
do you have lined up?
I have UCLA and then I did Rutgers later in the year. Rutgers is partly because they have two NBA prospects. Even though they're not very good, they have Ron Harper's kid and they have a guy named Ace Bailey who are both
Yeah.
really good. So I wanted to watch them.
And don't they
The
have there's a local guy going to Rutgers, right? From Rainier Beach. Am I?
There is. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
his name is Caden Powers, I want to say.
Yeah.
Um, Sidebar, Rainier Beach scored 139 points in a high school game, Kev.
Who'd they play?
The Nathan Hale Raiders, Michael Porter Jr.'s alma mater.
Okay, let's not act like Nathan Hill got stayed relevant after
No, but
after
I saw it on Instagram and it like started getting like national press because Jalen
yeah.
Petty, who I told you about before,
Yeah.
is Felix's favorite player watching.
Yeah.
Had 61 points, 15 assists, and 15 steals in that
It's
game.
like the second coming of DeJounte Murray.
He had some sick dunks. There's highlights on Instagram, and the comments though were like, "Isn't what happened to Nathan Hale? Isn't that where Michael Porter Jr. went?"
Yeah.
So, but 139 points. I'm not going to make any comments on whether they should have scored 139 or not.
Is Nate Robinson's kid on
He's on
Rainier
Rainier
Beach?
Beach. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
They're pretty loaded. I mean, they're the
Yeah.
best team in the state, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
that's a little high
Well,
school hoops for you. I
yeah,
went to
that's
prep Garfield on Friday, which was also fun. Garfield's got some good dudes.
yeah.
It was a close game, packed house, full student section. First time that I've seen it in a while. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good environment for high school basketball, which is great. So maybe as we get closer to state,
Yeah.
because I'm going to more games this year since I'm not coaching, we can do like a state preview
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
I have a cool debate in my head.
Okay.
Who has the most impressive resume? Mike Bethea at Rainier Beach or Monte Kohler at O'Day? Two different sports, but it seems like they've been
It's a
around
really good
forever,
question.
and they're always winners. Anyways, we'll leave that to the listeners to ponder. Let's move to the next topic, college football.
Second down.
Second
We
down.
call it second
Second
down.
down. College football, CFP, Ohio State versus Notre Dame.
Remind
fir-
everyone of your Notre Dame affiliations.
Yeah. Okay. So Christine holds a master's from Notre Dame.
Yep.
I did 1 year of law school at Notre Dame,
Yep.
which
Big
I
time.
feel the first year of law school is the hardest. So yeah, I transferred to Berkeley, but
You transferred to Berkeley, Kev. You didn't
Yeah.
transfer to like I don't know. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
say school.
But yeah, I cut my teeth. I mean, the rest of law school after the first year is kind of choose your own adventure, but the first year law curriculum has never changed in centuries, and it's
Yep.
just hard and it's just difficult, and everything's riding on the first year in terms of job prospects and a lot of other things. So anyways,
So
those
you're
are
rooting
my
for Notre Dame in your
I'm
house,
rooting
right?
for Notre Dame. Yeah, I went to games when I was there.
Yeah.
It was really cool because obviously I went to LMU, and they don't have a football team. So it's pretty
Right.
cool to have every weekend, at least when there are home games, to have an event of the day of the
Yep.
weekend.
One of my, now not coaching high school and having a little different schedule, it frees up a little bit of that late fall time.
Yeah.
I really would like to hit some bucket list college football stadiums.
Yeah.
And my buddies are kind of from Santa Clara, kind of along the same route, but it's really hard to get us together with our kids and stuff. So I don't know. Notre Dame's on that list for sure,
Ah, you
and
gotta go.
I love.
Yeah.
My sister she did her graduate program there, and she's
Yeah.
gone to a bunch of games, and she's rooting for Notre Dame hard. And
Yeah.
I Notre Dame was, when you're growing up, in the '80s, like I was, Kev. Even though they weren't on TV as much as they are now, or even in the last 10 years, Tony Rice, Rocket Ismail, like
Yeah.
Notre Dame was awesome in
Even
19.
before that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously they had Joe Montana and,
Yeah.
it goes way back, Newt Rockne, whatever. But Marcus Freeman is awesome. And I love him. I love his creativity. I love that special teams play he pulled off where he pulled the whole 11 off the field and then put another 11 on. I worry about Notre Dame playing Ohio State, dude. Ohio State is insane.
Yes, they are, but they're a two-loss team,
Yep.
and Notre Dame has two losses to look at and see how did Michigan beat them, how did Oregon beat them. So it's not as if this is a unbeatable team.
No,
Literally, they've
but
lost two times.
the local connection for people listening with Ohio State,
Yep.
they have two players. They have a receiver from Stillicum who I really wanted to go to the Huskies. He's their second guy behind Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith is a freshman who is
Belongs in the NFL.
the best receiver I've ever seen. And then I apologize, I can't say his name, but JTT on the defense went to
Yeah.
Eastside Catholic. And
Tuamalo, I think, is
nice,
I was
very good.
close, maybe. Maybe.
Fun fact, I coached against him in basketball. He was really good at basketball.
There's
And
always those like 6'7", 6'8" freaks of nature, right?
yeah, the
Who's the
story
guy?
with him
Yeah.
is like he was starting at middle linebacker as a freshman in high school. And as I think about my son going to potentially play freshman football, I'm like, we're so far from that. No offense to my son. He's just not that, he's not
Yeah.
the size of JTT who
Yeah.
was posting us up and passing out of the post. And he was just huge. He was
Yeah.
huge. And he's awesome too. So I will root for Notre Dame. What do you think? Let's go bigger picture and then we can transition to the NFL. But when thinking about the Huskies last year being in the college football playoff with the four teams,
Yeah.
obviously as a Husky fan, it was awesome. But I didn't really engage as much before the Huskies were in it. I
Yeah.
would watch, but I'd throw it on, and maybe it's because I was coaching, but I think the college football playoff, the bracket of 12 is awesome. What do you think?
Yeah. I like it too. And even though the first round didn't yield a lot of great, great games per
Right.
se, I like the idea that if you lose a game in September, that doesn't destroy your
Totally.
chances, right?
Yep.
So Notre Dame is a perfect example. Ohio State is an interesting example because they didn't even play in the Big Ten championship,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they've made it this far. So,
Great call. Yeah.
um, I don't. Some people are well, like, what's the point of having the championship game if a team like Ohio State can get in? The idea is like no team is perfect, right? And in every other sport and format, we make it in playoff format, we make it acceptable for teams to advance even though they're not perfect. The NCAA tournament's like the greatest
Yep.
example of that, right? And so that I keep on coming back to that when there's that argument that maybe the 14 playoff was better than this. Well, we won't say that when there is a Cinderella in the CFP. And I think there will be. I think there
Mm.
will be a point where, you know, a Boise State or an Arizona State, that would have been the example this year. They win a few games, and then all of a sudden, a team that maybe wasn't going to be considered in the top four is in the championship.
Yep.
So we're 1 year in this format. It's probably going to expand. There's probably a point of diminishing returns in terms of the size.
Right.
Um, so we'll see. I
I
think
don't
it's a
know if
good
it'll expand for a
conversation.
while. I think it'll stay at 12. I think 12 might be the right number. It
Amount.
didn't really feel like, I mean, if Alabama's the first team out or Ole Miss is the next, like, great.
Yeah.
They had 3 losses, I think, both of them. Like,
Yeah.
that's fine. Even
Yeah.
with the automatic qualifiers, the Arizona States and the SMUs or whatever, um, I think 12 is the right number. And
Yeah.
I think they got to fix the buys. Just give the top 4 teams buys. Then the first round games would be better because it would be
Closer. Yeah.
closer matchups. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, you can't take anything off one year other than I think it's more exciting. Like it got my interest, and whether that's me personally or everybody, I don't know. Ratings seem to be pretty good. The NFL dwarfs everything in ratings, but Oregon, Ohio State had massive ratings on January 1st. It had like 20 plus million viewers. So
20 plus million viewers saw Oregon choke.
yeah, just absolutely get throttled again.
Yeah.
Every college coach is being rumored for the Chicago Bears job. It appears I've seen
Including Marcus Freeman.
Marcus Freeman and Dan Lanning from Oregon are both. I've seen names for that. So
I think Pete Carroll. So what's interesting is that I don't know how long they've been doing this. I think I maybe saw some of this last year where the team's social media accounts will just announce who they're
yeah,
interviewing. So then you don't get like a Wojnarowski or like a Schefter breaking everything. It's just like the team breaking their own news. Like we
right,
interviewed so and so, right?
right.
I don't know what the purpose is or if it's required or I don't know. I don't even think did the Seahawks do that?
They have not. Seattle Times reported like 3 people they've interviewed for
Okay,
OC,
so it's totally
but
like a franchise decision.
yes. Head coach, I do think last year the Seahawks did it. They announced who they had interviewed.
Oh, okay.
I think,
Okay.
if I remember right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
NFL playoffs though, what do you think?
Yeah, let's go to third down. NFL
They're
playoffs.
down.
So here's my question for you with the NFL playoffs.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you
No,
before you
no,
asked your
no.
question.
No, no, no.
Um, where do you see the Seahawks compared to these teams? So
Yeah.
go
Just
ahead.
look at each team and they have a great quarterback. I think it's always like I don't think this changed. I don't think
Yeah.
the formula is all that surprising.
Yeah, I'm
Um
gonna say the same thing. The Texans beat the Chargers. Justin Herbert plays awful.
mhm.
Also, interesting fact, 85% of public money was on the Chargers in that game, which is your first sign to go bet on the Texans because the
Yeah.
public always loses. And I'm not saying that because it's rigged. I'm saying it because people think they know something that they don't, right?
Yeah.
And CJ Stroud was good and Herbert was bad, right? And CJ Stroud's a dude and they're playing the Chiefs. So that's
Yeah.
Mahomes, Stroud. Commanders win tonight. Jaden Daniels leads him down the field, rookie quarterback. He's awesome. Going against Goff, great system quarterback, clearly an upper echelon guy. Jalen Hurts has a skill that nobody else has. He's a good passer, but he could just run you over. Like
Mhm.
Tush Push is partly because he's the most physical running quarterback, maybe of all time. Not the best running, but the most physical. The best running is Lamar Jackson, and he's going against Josh Allen. And then you're going to have either Sam Darnold or Matthew Stafford. And I would argue that Stafford is still a top half quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Darnold, Mayfield, those guys who made the playoffs are kind of in the Geno realm. But I think you hit it, Kev. Like to get there again, get a quarterback play.
Yeah. And maybe the Seahawks do get it. Maybe they can get it, and then they have with Geno
Yeah.
Smith. But they're not going to advance.
Right. Like, are you going to
Yeah.
go win a Super Bowl, Geno Smith? I mean, that's what a lot of people say. Like, no
You need
matter
to win
how.
2 games against the
Yeah.
best teams in the NFL.
Yeah. So I don't. Yeah, I agree. I I am also on the bandwagon of like I don't know what the better option is next year. We've talked about this before. I think they
Yeah.
go make the O line better, but sometimes when I when I think, okay, they're not going to win the Super Bowl, I'm just happy they didn't make it so I could just enjoy the games
Yeah, it's
because
kind of
it's
twisted because
brutal.
if Pete Carroll gets hired by the Bears or one of these other vacancies, he might get to the playoffs before the Seahawks.
I think the Seahawks, I'm going to say right now, I think they're going to make it next year.
Okay.
But I thought they
Okay.
were going to make it this year. They also won 10 games. So
Yeah. We're
Mike,
acting like they're not that good, but
yeah,
they
Mike
won 10
McDonald in
games.
his second year, you would hope, based on what you saw, will be better.
Yep. Yep.
And I think as good as Sean McVay is, I don't know what their future solution at quarterback is either. Are they just going to ride Stafford out till he breaks? Maybe.
Mhm.
And then the Niners, I'm guessing, will bounce back and they're going to pay Purdy, but will they bounce all the way back? And the Cardinals are just kind of the Cardinals. So it's a
Yeah.
winnable division. Um, it's going to be hard, but there's usually turnover every year in the NFL playoffs. And so
Yeah. How do you feel about Justin Herbert, Oregon grad? Four
he's one of
interceptions.
he's one of the worst playoff quarterbacks of all time. He's had two of the worst playoff performances in NFL history.
S-
Last year, 2 years ago, last year, right? When they
Yeah.
lost to the Jaguars and they had like a 28-0 lead or whatever it is. Um,
So imagine if you're an Oregon
bad.
fan and you just
You were just waiting to do
yeah,
this.
yeah, I love this. You just lose you choke in this college football play after being the consensus number one team. You lose, and then you're like, all right, NFL playoffs. I got two horses here. I got Justin Herbert. I got Bo Nix. Bo Nix puts up 7 points.
Yeah.
Rough, rough.
And Herbert had the worst game of the weekend. So there you go.
There you go. Go
There you
Ducks.
go. Go Ducks.
Fourth down.
Fourth
Fourth
down.
down. We're
This,
cruising.
yeah, fourth down's going to be a little different, with the Kraken being the way they are and not a lot of offseason news for different sports. We're going to talk about something we've mentioned before. The Unrivaled League kicks off this Friday, the 17th. For those who don't know or don't remember, the Unrivaled League is the Brianna Stewart and others created 3-on-3 women's professional basketball league that's running opposite the WNBA schedule. It's an off-season league. We've talked about the merits of that, not playing overseas. There's a bunch of women playing in it, and it starts on TNT and Max. And so I have two things for you, Kev. First, you have the rosters in front of you. We're not going to list everybody off for everybody,
Yeah.
but who do you think the best team is? There are 6 teams. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I think Brianna Stewart rigged this because
I'm with you. I'm with
she
you.
has
Let's list her roster off. That's a
yeah.
hard sentence. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got Jewel Lloyd, who
Yep.
is in the middle of something with the Storm right now. She got Corny Vandersloot, Gonzaga legend, and
Yep.
also really good basketball
All-star.
player
Yep.
legend. Joni Carrington, I'm not familiar.
Dejanay Carrington.
Dejanay Carrington.
She played at Baylor, I want to say, back in the day. She's a borderline. I don't know if she's borderline all-star. She's a very good rotation player in the NBA.
Yeah.
She's a good guard.
And Rakia Jackson, or is it?
Rakia Jackson was the number 4 pick in the draft last year. She was a rookie on the Sparks.
Yeah.
She was the best rookie. I don't know if she won Rookie of the Year, but oh no, Caitlin Clark would have won Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
She was the second best rookie in this class for sure.
And then Brianna
Stewart.
Stewart's the captain, and then Aaliyah Edwards.
Aaliyah Edwards, who was a post at UConn a few years back and is an up and coming young player. I agree with you. That team stood out. I'm like, that team's awesome. And if you think about 3-on-3 basketball, which is just different, if you've watched the Olympics and 3-on-3, like Jewel Lloyd is in Vandersloot, and I even think Ricky Jackson and Carrington and Stewie is like the ultimate 3-on-3. Like they just have the skill set for it because they can post, they can pass, they move without the ball, they can shoot, they all can handle. Like their bigs can handle, which is different. So I think they're pretty loaded. I would say the second best team to me might be Vinyl BC. What a name. They have Arike I can never say her last name. Ogbowale, who went to Notre Dame. She's a shot creator. Jordan Canada, former Storm player. good creative guard. Ryan Howard, who went to Kentucky, a few years in the league. She's awesome scorer. Ray Burrell, Aaliyah Boston, who's really a post, and Derek Hamby, who's really a post. So they're interesting because they have two posts, but they're big. Like they might just post people up who can't guard. There's no help. I don't know how you can double team in 3-on-3, right? So if you have a post and you could throw it into them, maybe you go to work. I don't know. So
It's a fascinating. It's
yeah,
like
are you gonna watch, Kev?
I mean, I'm just out of pure curiosity.
Yeah.
I don't know what the level will be. That's the other thing
Yeah.
that I'm thinking about is how hard are these players going to play? Because this kind of doesn't feel like it is the WNBA. So when I saw this in our show outline, I asked Christina, "Are you interested?" And she said, she's like, kind of. There's too much basketball on."
That's
And
fair, Christy. That's
there
fair.
is. We barely can watch, our women's team. Sorry, the women's college basketball. There's men's college basketball. There's the NBA.
You guys have Santa Clara tickets.
We have
I mean,
Santa
there's
Clara
all
tickets. Yeah.
kinds of stuff. Yeah.
So why would I watch this weird 3-on-3 thing? She didn't say that. I'm just kind of like hypothesizing. But I'm curious. I haven't watched any of the big three or
No, but that's different. I mean, these are legit.
in their prime.
I mean, I think if Caitlin Clark's playing, that would be a big get for them. But Sabrina's playing, and we obviously talked about a couple of the rosters already. You got Chelsea Gray, Angel Reese is playing, Kalia Copper, Brittany Griner's playing.
Do you think
Skylar Diggins Smith and Nafisa Collier?
Ooh, aren't you looking forward to the Diggins Smith versus Jewel Lloyd game? See if they're friends.
Absolutely.
So,
I'm looking forward to that.
Let's watch that game.
Yeah. The Laces have a decent interesting roster. Jackie Young, Tiffany Hayes, Kayla McBride, Kate Martin, who everybody loves, Alyssa Thomas, and Stephanie Dolson. Alyssa Thomas is a triple-double machine. Jackie Young is maybe one of the best shot creators in the league. Kayla McBride can shoot from half court. So they just have like this. It's interesting. I'm trying to get to what you were talking about. So here's one thing that's interesting for people watching. There's a couple things. It only goes till mid-March, so it's contained. It's not quite, March Madness, but it's similar. Weird shot values maybe in this thing. I'm trying to find the rule on it. Like, I don't know if there's 4-pointers or something. I don't think there is, but I saw some thing about that. But here's the one that I think's fascinating. There's a one-on-one tournament. Do you remember us talking about this?
Yes. Yeah.
With a $250,000 prize. That's more than Caitlin Clark's salary by far.
Yeah, she would stand no chance in a one-on-one tournament, though.
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, Breanna Stewart's got to be the favorite.
Yeah,
I would think. I don't know.
Yeah,
I might tune in for that.
Yeah.
I mean, so to get to your original point, I do think they're going to play hard. They're so used to playing in the off season anyway, and I think there's a lot of pride on the line here. This is not like the NBA All-Star game, which they're trying to fix and make competitive. This is, first of all, I think the women have always played harder in any sort of outside of WNBA game. And I think this league, they want it to work. And some people are part owners, and I think they're going to play hard. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting.
Looking forward to it.
One of our listeners, Justin, who writes us a lot, they're flying to Miami, courtside seats to one of these games. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But the games are in like a palace ballroom. It's like in a hotel. Like they're not in arenas.
This is why we gotta have some.
I gotta watch this. It's gonna be weird.
Yeah. We gotta ask him to give us some. We should have him on to talk about it.
We should have him get some live interviews from the courtside.
Yeah.
Just hold up his phone and see if he can get Jewel Lloyd to talk about the trade negotiations. He'll be our inside source.
Great.
All right, so we did it. 4 downs. Kevin Kelly's done. I wonder how Kevin Kelly's team did this year, if they made the playoffs or not in high school, where he was. They didn't have a good record last we checked, but the segment we want to do just briefly is, Kev is a big time college football tweeter now, recruiting insider, let's say, Kev. Is that fair?
Someone called me like the Woj of
Woj.
the Woj of UW football recruiting slash portal.
Whoa. Who was this? Your mom?
No, this was a friend.
Okay.
And I just kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
I mean, you are now, and I'm guessing this is what happens to Woj before he left, and
Yeah.
Jeff Pass and all these guys. Is like,
Yeah.
I feel like you're just, it's your regular job, and lawyering is your second job. Like you're tweeting all the time about recruits.
Yeah, I get it out in the morning during lunch break and then
Okay.
at 5. That's my answer.
That's a good answer, Kev. Um, so what have you learned from all of a
Yeah.
sudden you have all these sources and you're like a go-to guy in the industry, which is super weird to me. What have you learned?
Um, I've learned that it is insane in that um maybe the portal is probably more important for short term success, and people are all about instant
Yeah.
gratification in 2025, and so I think there's a lot more interest around that. um what I've learned about the high school recruiting is I think it's a lot more transactional now, and not that it wasn't before, but uh I think the interesting thing is a smaller school, if they offer a higher profile recruit more money than, let's say, like a UW, I think the smaller school actually stands a chance at getting that player to come play for them. Maybe you can push back and say, yeah, I think you're full of crap. I don't come up with some examples. I can't think of one off the top of my head. But I think it's going to become more like that. When agents enter it, and it's just weird though. It's weird to think that like a high school senior, instead of thinking of the traditional things of going to college, where you're thinking of, what coach do I vibe with the most? Where can my family watch me play? Where will I get the most playing time? Like for some of these kids, I think the calculus or the calculations are changing, and they're
Yeah, I don't
thinking,
think they care about calculus.
yeah, okay, yeah, they don't care about
I
calculus.
was gonna actually say,
Yeah.
did they ever care about like the academics of a school? I mean, maybe at some point they did, but maybe that's just me
Some
being
kid,
naive.
I mean, some at different levels, maybe,
Right.
but the levels that we're talking about, big time college football, no one cares about academics. I mean, even at LMU, that was the first good lesson I learned about college athletics when I was a manager. Was the one of the coaches told me, like, Kevin, they didn't come here to go to class. They came here because they want to go pro. And of course, I'm
Yeah.
laughing because I'm like, why'd you come to LMU to go pro, right? But that's the idea,
Fair. That's
right?
fair.
So, um, it's just become more because it's become more of that because it's blatantly so this is the vehicle, and you can become pro in college now, right?
Did
You're
you
you're getting
see?
paid.
Yeah, did you see the quote from Rick Barnes, Tennessee men's coach?
Yeah. Yeah,
He
you're getting
said
paid.
he said one of their best players and best shooters, I think his name is Chaz Lanier.
Yeah.
I think that's his name. I might be off a little bit, but he said he don't get paid to come here and not shoot, so I put him on the bench. And it was the first time I think people can remember a major college coach referring to a player getting paid because
Yeah.
you couldn't talk about that. Now I hear podcasts all the time where people talk about it more openly, how it
Oh
used to
yeah.
be.
Well, we had Joe Knight come on, and um he just said it's pay to play. And
Right.
in college sports, no one it's not frowned upon to say that, because
Right.
that's what NIL is, and they're going to change that, right? To become more um you know more clearly of what it is, right? You're
Now,
paying players to play.
now there's some court rulings and different things, and I got in a deep dive this week reading about it, and I need to go back to it, or I'm going to wait to see what really plays out. But it seems like there's going to be some guidelines and restrictions on this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do you know?
It's just depends on, there's great guidelines and there's great rules, right? So if you look at the constitution of a lot of dictatorship countries and stuff, you'll look at those constitutions and they look even better than the US Constitution. But what you'll realize is these guidelines and rules mean nothing if the people in charge aren't enforcing them. And this is the issue with the NCAA,
Right.
is that there's been a lack of leadership, and part of that's you're governing like every single university and college in the country. But part of that is just um, there hasn't been leadership. So what's happening is instead of the NCAA setting the rules and regulations, you have judges across the country
Right.
that aren't steeped in NCAA, athletics, and through the judges, it's the lawyers setting the rules who have different interests, right? And you need people setting the rules that have the interests of all the parties considered. And that's the issue, is that people that, like, you get this patchwork, right? All these rules and regulations are reactions to something. None of it is happening from the top down. We're saying this is the rule, we're going to enforce it.
Right.
Here's how we're going to do it. You can look at everything that's changed in college athletics. Most of it's because the NCAA lost a lawsuit,
Right.
which is
which is
I don't
crazy.
think you're
they don't
ever,
have
yeah,
any sort of
yeah,
structure. They never, I mean, they had a president, they still do have a president, but
yeah.
they're just, you're right, totally responding to lawsuits and
This is the whole
different
JUCO
things.
thing. It's a mess, right? They're
Right.
just like,
Yeah.
we're gonna give everyone an extra year of eligibility, which just throws everything into a loop. It just, to me, until you, and people have said, until, wow, this has gotten like really academic. Until Congress does something, right? Of all things that Congress can do, um, this is like, there's much more important things for Congress to do. Well, actually, maybe regulating NCAA college sports is important, but people are saying like you need, the federal government to do something about it. So,
Well, the most recent thing I saw is they're proposing a salary cap on NIL for next year,
yeah,
which would, and they valued different positions, had maxes and all that
yeah,
stuff. So what the fallout I saw, and this is probably affecting what you're seeing from agents and different people who you talk to, is everybody's trying to get the bag right now before this cap comes in.
oh
So
yeah.
um maybe that's why people are transferring more or whatever it is, but
The
I
people,
don't know.
the issue is like, and I think was it Drew Rosenhaus? Some major agent was on Game Day talking about NIL and talking about agent being an agent for college athletes, and the takeaway was that like these college athletes are essentially pros, but
Yep.
there's no collective bargaining agreement. So like
Right.
again, there's no guardrails. So you can leave after you've been to a place for a year, and your institution, all they get is an open roster spot. There's no usually like like you
Yeah,
trade
think
players,
about,
right?
yeah, or think about just the way MLB has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, this is random, but like when free agents leave now, this is a football model that they
Yeah.
adopted. You get compensatory draft picks.
Hmm.
So like when you lose free agents, and MLB ones are really valuable. They get these sandwich picks between the first and second round if you're a really good free agent, which could end up being a really good dude. Now it's 7 years down the road, so maybe that's not awesome. Football has the same thing. They have supplementary rounds. Um, yeah, or you trade, or guys sign a contract in the professional, right? So
Yeah.
they have rookie deals, right? We don't have freshman deals in college football. It's the wild, wild
There's like no
west.
reason, like there is no reason for um John Mateer to stay at Wazoo, right? There's no incentive.
But this is my argument, and that I think you're going to push back on, but
Yeah.
why it doesn't matter what your high school recruiting class ranking is. So cool. Jed Fish is the 25th best 2005.
Yeah.
And you're tweeting, I'm not trying to take away
Yeah.
from your work, but
Yeah.
like all these 2026 kids and all this stuff and guys taking visits. And
Yeah.
for me, as a more casual fan of that, of the Huskies,
Yeah.
than maybe people who follow all the recruiting other than anyway, I'm like, who cares? They're not going to be there.
But
And
yeah,
this is the disillusionment that the college football that's going to be the problem they have, right?
yeah. Well, it's the same. Like, is the coach even going to be there? Right.
Totally.
So,
Yeah. Great
someone
point.
actually sent me the question and they asked me, like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of getting excited about this? And my response was, well, in the portal this year, the Huskies only had 2 freshmen leave out of the 26.
Hmm.
And their two best freshmen are coming back, Adam Muhammad and
Yeah.
Damon Williams.
That's a good
And
answer.
so,
Yeah.
in that sense, I mean, I get it. I get that there's a threat of a player leaving every year. And I get the threat of, oh, they're trying to go get their bag. And I'm never going to be in a position, well, like loyalty matters more. Well, if you were loyal, you'd pay them more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do think that recruiting the top, like there's probably like a span, right? So if you can land like a Damon Williams, for example,
Yep.
or an Adam Muhammad that can play right away, like that matters. Now, the maybe 3 stars and down, right? It's kind of like drafting. It's just like the NFL draft. I think Fish is onto something, right? Does the 7th round pick matter? Like, is that guy even going to make the team? Right? The Seahawks make all these picks. Some of these guys don't even make it out of camp. You can still get excited about the NFL draft. You can still get excited about the top, 1st round, 2nd round picks. So I think it's honestly not too far of a off of a comparison. But the only difference is, at least with the NFL draft, you have rules, right? You have rookie contracts. You have
you have
guarantees.
Jaden Daniels on the Commanders under a rookie contract for 4 years plus an option, and you go try to win a Super Bowl. Whereas Damon Williams is going to demand a $4 million salary next year if he has a great year, and I guess they'll just pay it, or they'll hope that he accepts it and doesn't transfer to Miami where his girlfriend is. Oh, that's Carson Beck of Georgia.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we just talked earlier about the college football playoff and how cool it is, and at the same time, I've said on here I love the transfer portal because it's chaos, but part of me, maybe it's just I want to understand the rules, and it's not like I understand all.
No, but to understand the rules,
to
understand the rules, there needs to be rules.
That's what I mean.
Needs to be people enforcing the rules.
And I was gonna say I don't really get all the salary cap things of the NFL.
Yeah,
but I get that there's limitations, and I get that a rookie deal is important, and I get that you don't want to pay Tyler Lockett $31 million as a receiver. Whereas in college, I'm like, I don't know.
Well, no one has any. I think the only people that really know are the people within, and no one's going to share with each other.
Yeah.
Unless I truly do become Adam Schefter. But there's no way of knowing because there are no rules. There's just speculation. Like, for example, so some agent, a 25-year-old agent, was on some podcast, and this kind of set a firestorm on social media and saying like, "Oh, all agents charge 20%." And
in college, because in the pros, the normal percentage 5%. Is 3 to 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all these other NIL agents, reputable ones, said this guy's a scam artist, right? Like they're saying, like we charge 5% to all our college athletes. That's our take home, our commission. And how does a 25-year-old become an agent that's charging some college kids 20%? Well, because there are no rules, there's no regulations. Like no one knows what they're talking about. Like there's 18-year-olds just getting conned, right? It's it's messy. It's very messy. And when it's messy, bad things happen.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see even more lawsuits come out of this.
For sure. Yeah.
And this is me talking as a fan and not a lawyer. That's my disclaimer. Okay.
Nice job. Let's move to top 5.
Top 5. Hopefully the transition was a little less abrupt. I think it was still abrupt. I listened to the last. I'm working on it, guys. You want to go first, or should I go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
Okay. So I'm gonna try and make it easy on you. I was trying to think, what would a top five be? Should we do top five sandwiches? I thought about all kinds
Oh,
of things.
nice.
But um I saw, a stat that Lad McConkey, great name, receiver for the Chargers, despite Justin Herbert's terrible game, had 197 receiving yards in his playoff debut.
How many touchdowns?
I don't know. That's a good question. But that's a lot of receiving yards.
That would have been a
And
lot of fantasy points in our fantasy league.
it would have. And then I saw that, DK Metcalf was in the top five for a playoff debut. He had
What?
160. He had 160 against the Eagles in
Ah,
2020. I don't even remember them going to the playoffs in 2020 and playing the Eagles, probably because it was COVID. No fans were there and all that stuff. But they played the Eagles in the playoffs. And I don't even know if that was his debut. I don't know. I was very
DK
confused.
Metcalf was good at one point.
Oh, wow. So anyway, I thought, well, okay. I gotta click on this game. It was a wild card game. Well, the Seahawks won. This is before the Eagles got good. 17-9 in Philadelphia. Marshawn was on that team. Yeah, what? This is wild. Can't even believe it. Oh, Russell had a really good game. Yeah, and DK had 160 yards. But that's not my trivia question. I'm gonna let you pick from the top 10. Okay. Top. I'm going for top five, but I'm gonna let you pick from. You got to get 5 out of the 10 greatest single game playoff receiving performances by yards.
Randy Moss has to be up there.
He's not. Strike one.
Oh,
And I can give you hints if you want it, but there are names that you will know, so I didn't want to give you hints to start.
yeah, don't
I
give
would
me
have guessed Randy
hints.
Moss probably too.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
Um,
15th. He had the 15th. He had 188 one time.
God, who else is up there? I keep on wanting to say Hines Ward, but that just seems wrong. I keep on wanting to say like Keyshawn Johnson. He doesn't seem significant enough. Um, God, is there a Patriot on there? That's
Why
where
don't
I
you,
was going with Moss.
why don't you just pick the greatest receiver of all time?
Who's the greatest receiver of all time?
Oh my God. People are dying right now.
Jerry Rice,
Thank you.
Seattle Seahawks legend.
Jerry Rice against the Bengals had 215 yards. That must have been in the Super Bowl. Also, that Super Bowl, that's the first Super Bowl I ever watched in 1989. It was on January 22nd. The Super Bowl used to be so early.
God,
That's crazy, right?
what people do with the rest of their Januaries.
No, that's a good point.
Um, okay, so Jerry Rice is one. I need four more. This is hard.
Mhm.
I'm
All
a
right.
lot better with
Detroit Lions.
oh, Megatron.
Yes, Calvin Johnson, right behind Jerry Rice, 211 yards against the
God,
Saints in 2012.
what a beast. He
The
retired
next
at 30.
day,
Could
the
you imagine
next
retiring
day,
at 30?
no, that would have been awesome. The next day, a Denver Bronco had 204 yards in his eighth all time. So this is 2012. Do you know Denver Broncos wide receivers in
Brandon Marshall.
2012? No, that's a good guess though. Demarius Thomas. Do you remember him? He's really good.
Yeah, RIP.
Yep. Um, Here's some other names you would know: Reggie Wayne for the Colts,
Yeah.
Steve Smith for the Panthers.
Who the Seahawks
They're
seem to
both.
beat every single year.
Yep, they're both top five. T.Y. Hilton for the Colts. That's a crazy one. But those are that Hilton was three, Wayne four, Steve Smith five, Rice six, Calvin Johnson seven, Demarius Thomas eight. Gabe Davis of the Bills 2022 is ninth all time. That's wild. The number one and number two are crazy. Number two is Anthony Carter, played for the Vikings. You may not remember him. Totally remember him from my childhood because they had Chris Carter and Anthony Carter as their wide receivers. And number one all time, 240 yards, Buffalo Bills against Dolphins, 1999. Eric Moulds. I couldn't even tell you who that is. Eric Moulds has the NFL record for single game playoff receiving yards, 240. That's stupid.
Um,
So there you go. That's my top five for you.
wow. I'm on Eric Moulds' 2-time second team All Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler. He would have been in the.
Oh wow, he was better than I thought. I don't.
He
Yeah,
would
I
have
don't.
been in the. Well, actually, he
I
might have
remember
not.
a lot of random players. How do I
Maybe in the
not remember?
New York sports top all-time top 100.
Oh no,
Probably
no,
not.
no,
Yeah,
no, no, no,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
He's 3-time Pro Bowler, but oh wow, he was good. How do I not remember Eric Moulds? I
Yeah.
watched football at this time. This is like when I was in college. I just have a total block for this guy.
Yeah, he almost had 10,000 receiving yards.
He had a 100 catch season, a 94 catch season, an 88 catch season. I mean, he was decent.
C-Town's
4,000 yards
dude,
years.
he made it far enough in his career to play for the Texans as well. Like
He
when he started his career, the Texans didn't exist in 1996. Is that cool?
and then he played for the Titans, which is funny
Yeah.
because they didn't exist. Oh, that yeah, what weird. Anyway, Eric Molds, I apologize. Eric Shannon Molds, I am sorry. All right, top 5 for me.
Top 5. I was thinking about the NBA,
Of course you were.
and I was thinking about how crazy it is that how hard it is to make the NBA All-Star team. So then
Okay.
I got curious, and I was like, Sonic's All-Stars.
Mm.
I think you can name 5 of them. So I want to make it more
Well,
difficult.
I'm just
Can you?
naming all stars. What do you mean?
No, no, no. Can you name the last 5
Oh
Sonic's
boy,
All-Stars individually?
I feel like we did this once.
Maybe not, but we're doing it again. Wow, we're
Okay.
running out of content in episode 31. I
Yeah,
hope not.
that's bad. No, we're past 31. We're like
32.
something. Yeah. Can you tell me the years?
Well, the years are
Because I 2007, 8, is that the last year?
that was the last year, which is disgusting because RealGM.com collapses the Thunder's record book with the
Yeah.
Sonics. So, yeah, the last All-Star was in 2006, 2007 season.
Yeah, I was gonna say Kevin Durant didn't make it in
Yeah.
Seattle. Ray Allen.
Ray Allen. So Ray Allen made it for 3 consecutive seasons.
Rashard Lewis.
Rashard Lewis made it with Ray Allen in 0405. Wow, we had 2 picks, and that was the playoff team.
Yep.
So yeah,
This
so
is
you
where it
have
gets
2.
harder.
Yeah,
Okay. Can you give me a hint if I'm going, do I keep going backwards or is
keep
there
on going
one? Okay,
backwards.
so there's no one in that era. Those are the 2 guys. Okay. Vin Baker.
Yes, Vin Baker. You're not getting it in order, but he is.
That's fine. Yep. Gary
So that's
Payton.
4. Wait, no, that's 3.
Yep. Gary Payton.
So that's 4. Yep, Gary
Okay.
Payton last made it before Ray Allen made it.
Okay, so there's somebody else. Would it be a random dude or would it just be Sean Kemp? How about Detlef Schrempf?
Yep.
Oh yeah,
No,
let's
wait,
go.
no,
Oh,
wait.
dang
He
it.
was. So Kemp would have been the 5th.
All right,
and
so I was
Schrempf.
gonna guess Kemp next.
Actually,
I
no,
promise.
no, no. Wait, you're right because they all made it in 96, 97.
Yes, let's go.
Yeah, so you're right. Do you want to keep
I-
on going?
I do remember that Kemp, Payton, and Schrempf
Yeah.
made it together. If you keep going back, then I mean, there's not a lot of Sonics All Stars, right?
Yeah,
That was a
let's-
big year with 3. So if you're
well,
going,
they did that the year before that? No,
no,
it's just
Schrempf only
96,
made it once, I think, if I remember from our
96,
top
no,
100.
94, 95. That same
Okay.
3 made it.
So if you keep going back, you're it's getting into Dale Ellis,
Yep, you got
Xavier McDaniel
Yep.
made a team. Tom Chambers made a
Yep.
team.
Wow, you're naming them in order.
Wow, this is awesome. This feels good. So now we're looking at like the early 80s.
Yeah.
So now we're going back to, well, I'm thinking of our top 100 because I did a lot of the NBA ones. I mean, early 80s, late 70s, we're looking at Fred Brown, Gus Williams.
No
They're
Fred
probably
Brown.
too far back.
Gus Williams is
yeah.
there. This guy had a son that played basketball at Bellevue.
Oh. Jack Sikma, of course.
Jack Sikma.
Of
And
course,
then,
Jack Sikma. And
I'll just-
then before that, you'd have to go like Spencer Haywood, Bob Rule.
Bob
Right.
Rule. Yeah, 1969.
You and I talked about Bob Rule a lot in our top 100 because you were like, "Who the hell is Bob Rule?" And then his numbers are crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Who am I missing? That was pretty good by me.
Yeah, I mean, you're missing Lenny Wilkens. The first All-Star ever for the Seattle Supersonics, Mahdi Abdul-Rahman, 1967 and 1968.
I did not know that.
And Fred Brown actually did make it, 1975, 1976. And
Nice.
Dennis Johnson.
Yep, DJ. Yeah.
And Paul Westphal.
Yeah.
Jack Sikma and David Thompson.
David Thompson.
It's actually really hard to become an All-Star.
Yeah.
So
The NBA All-Star is super crazy. Think about MLB.
Yeah.
Dan Vogelbach and Jose Lopez have been All-Stars for the Mariners. Right? Because you have to have an All-Star representative. In the NBA, franchises can go 15 years without an All-Star. Because there's certain guys who are going to take it. Right?
Yeah.
You think about it right now. Curry's going to be on it, and LeBron and Booker and Durant and, all these dudes. And if you watch that starting five show on Netflix, which
I watched it.
My son is
I know
obsessed with.
exactly what you're talking about.
Sabonis had an incredible year for the Kings, and he didn't make it.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It was kind of funny because LeBron's also on the show.
Yeah.
And Anthony Edwards. And then it just shows Sabonis going on like vacation, I think.
Yes, he went to like a pool with his kids. And I mean, he seemed like he was having a great time, and he's a really, really good player.
Yeah.
And he should have made it last year, but that's how hard it is. Yeah. Sabonis had like all-time numbers at the All-Star break last year and didn't make it.
Yep.
So yeah, NBA is really, really hard. That was a good top 5. I mean, it was fun for me because I did well. Thanks, Kev.
Yeah, of course. So this week we got Husky basketball. I put up a good UW football recruiting update. They had the open contact period last week. All the stuff is on the website. I think there'll be some Mariners off season.
If we ever get a signing, I'm going to write about it. If something happens, I'm going to write about it. And at some point, I do want to write about a Seahawks to-do list for the offseason.
Seahawks to-do list.
Yeah. So like
craft
what they
a quarterback.
Need to do.
Yeah.
Maybe a 5 things to do for the Seahawks, or something like that. Yeah. But we'll see when that happens. So.
All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.